The Florida Panthers are back at home looking to get back to their winning ways right before the holiday break.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Thursday, December 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. And today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for detail. So the Florida Panthers, they're back at home finally after a 5-game road trip that lasted just over a week, 2-3-0 on that road trip, but back at home and in a very comfortable place, a place that they are 9-4-0 on the season, taking on the St. Louis Blues. The first of two matchups tonight, and then the other one coming on January 9th in their next West-ish coast trip. But let's talk about how the St. Louis Blues got here. Let's talk about the opponent. This is an episode that's going to be very focused on. We'll dig more into the Panthers roster updates in the third segment as we are recording this 15 minutes before the Panthers take the ice for morning skate from Amerant Bank Arena. So the St. Louis Blues, how they got here as far as that. But let's go back all the way to 2019, where they get off to that 7-3 start, fire Mike Yeo as the head coach. Craig Berube grew up in the organization for the St. Louis Blues as their head coach for their AHL affiliate, Chicago Wolves, right before they became the Hurricanes affiliate and all. And then promoted to head coach when Mike Yeo was fired. And even for the Blues, off to a rough start for them, 15-8-4 at the end of 2018, but then turn it on in January, going 30-10-5 to that final stretch. And even Jordan Binnington coming into the mix as well. Earlier in the season, he was in AHL San Antonio, which he was playing decently well in, goes into the St. Louis Blues and goes 24-5-1, 1.89 GAA and a 927 save percentage. They go on that run, beat the Boston Bruins in Game 7 at TD Garden. Not the only team to beat Boston in a Game 7 on the road. The Florida Panthers and the St. Louis Blues are one of two in the last 6 years. And this is the thing. Even though there was a lot of roster turnover for the St. Louis Blues, they were still making the postseason every year except for the last season. I mean, after they won the Cup, Berube got the interim tag taken off. Jordan Binnington gets extended, so everything's all good, right? Not so much. But and you think about what the St. Louis Blues were trying to do as far as trying to remain competitive, and of course with the cap, even before the flat cap and COVID and all, you just can't keep anyone in the cap world. I mean, immediately after winning the Stanley Cup, Joel Edmondson gets traded for Justin Falk. He gets extended as well and has a no trade clause attached to it. We'll talk more about no trade clauses in the St. Louis Blues later on in the show. One season after winning the Cup, you're thinking Alex Pietrangelo, he's gonna get a big contract from the St. Louis Blues and all, but no, they decide not to give him one, and then he signs with the Vegas Golden Knights. And more importantly, is the captain there? Excuse me, not the captain there. Mark Stone's the captain, but has the leadership of a captain there, and leads them to a Stanley Cup, can play in all situations and all. Jay Bomeister, I know he was on the older side of 30. unfortunately retired due to what happened in Anaheim due to cardiac arrest. And you think about all the players that left as well. Vince Dunn gets picked from the expansion draft from the Seattle Kraken. Jaden Schwartz signs as a free agent there as well. And then recently, I mean, restocking the farm as well, going into their retool as they were not qualifying for the playoffs. I mean, you get a first round pick for Ryan O'Reilly, Vladimir Tarasenko, and you get a NHL ready player, or at least pro ready player when you trade Ivan Barbashev to the Vegas Golden Knights. And part of their team that helped them win the cup, Pat Maroon, he won 3 straight Stanley Cups on 2 different teams as well. So it was a lot of turnover. It wasn't gonna be easy for the St. Louis Blues to continue the winning ways, but they were once again, they were still making the postseason every year except for last year. And it really comes down to roster construction for the Blues. A good part of their blue line, a lot of them have no trade clauses, so it's really hard to move guys. You're gonna have to make some minor moves as well if you're Doug Armstrong and all, and you're really strapped. I mean, nobody signs free agents prior to 2020 thinking that we're going to go into a flat cap. So, I mean, the Panthers felt that pinch most definitely with buyouts and big contracts to Sergei Bobrovsky as well. So you're also thinking about that, but also some of the misbehaviors on the ice, especially from their goaltender, Jordan Binnington. He's punching guys in the face with his glove. I mean, part of me wants to say at least it's not the blocker, but I'm because that hurts. But he's punching guys with the glove, throwing a helmet at Pierre-Luc Dubois when he was still with the Jets, a water bottle at Nazem Kadri's direction in the middle of an interview after a playoff game, and bumping shoulders with Ilya Sorokin and all, going after Jamie Benn. And then the greatest one is going after Ryan Hartman after a goal clipped him by accident because Jordan Bennington's leg was outside the crease. And then Marc-Andre Fleury wanted to go after Jordan Bennington and getting a goalie fight. And then a few days later, there was that audio that was released from Flower saying, "Come on, it'll be fun. It'll be fun," to the referees. But they did not allow the two, unfortunately, to fight each other and get a goalie fight. Which, by the way, I'm surprised that John Hines didn't have Marc-Andre Fleury start in Pittsburgh just a few nights ago in what's looking to be his final time in Pittsburgh. I mean, he had a whole bunch of family in Montreal when he played there. But also, I mean, we spoke about Jordan Binnington getting extended and all, but his play and his antics on the ice and even off the ice after the game, we spoke about the post-game interview with Kadri earlier, is you're scratching your head and thinking, man, but the thing is, they were stuck with him as far as contract and commitment, which is why you saw Ville Husso's UFA rights traded to Detroit, which now Ville Husso is hurt for the Detroit Red Wings. His performance hasn't been well. And also, is Alex Lyon now going to take the full-time reins as the starting goaltender in Detroit? So something to monitor there as well for as an ex-Florida Panther as well. So something there as far as that. We at least me, I cheer for former Panthers in order to be successful, except if it's against the Panthers, of course. But in segment number 2, we are going to talk more about this season for the St. Louis Blues and all the stuff on and off the ice, the firing, how they got here. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guarantee Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On covering our national shows, covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever 24/7 streaming channel. So, what with the St. Louis Blues and how they got here as well. I mean, it's also not only trying to remain competitive in a cap world, but it's also really about not developing guys as well for the Blues. And one person that I think of that is having a whole bunch of success elsewhere. We spoke about one player. Well, this person it hasn't really been successful in another team, but also an inability to develop a defenseman, and I think of someone like Jake Wallman, who was part of that trade for Nick Leddy, who's another player who also has a no trade clause attached to him as well. And Nick Leddy is on one of the best pairs in the NHL as far as defense as well. Nico Mikkola was part of that trade with Vladimir Tarasenko to the New York Rangers, and now look what Nico Mikkola is doing with the Panthers. I mean, almost at his career high in goals as well, and all. So part of that transition period, Nico Mikkola was part of that for the St. Louis Blues. As far as players who are still with the organization for the St. Louis Blues, Jordan Binnington, Robert Thomas, Braden Shen, Colton Parayko, Jordan Kyrou, and Oscar Sundqvist. But at the time when they won the Stanley Cup, the Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou weren't really the big impact players just yet there. So they were trying to transition, but not blowing it up completely. And also, a few years ago, when they lost Alex Pietrangelo to the Vegas Golden Knights, they tried to bring in Torrey Krug as part of that replacement for Pietrangelo, but again, another player who has a big contract and a big clause attached to him. It's a really hard contract to move. I mean, they tried trading. Well, they did eventually succeed in trading for Kevin Hayes, but not for what they wanted to dish out, as Torrey Krug used his no trade clause because he did not want to go to Philly to be part of a rebuild. But on paper, we were seeing, oh, Philadelphia, they're going to be one of the worst teams in the NHL. No, they're overachieving this season, and it's a John Tortorella coach team, and guys are gonna play hard. They're gonna want to impress, and play. Front office is tank, players don't. That's just the truth. And with the tough note, with how Tortorella's tough nose and all, that could be the reason why the Philadelphia Flyers are overachieving as they are. But Danny Briere said that they are still going to try to rebuild the farm. So don't think we're going to see the Flyers as buyers at the deadline. So Torrey Krug missed his chance there as far as being part of something special possibly there, as they are looking for, as the Flyers are looking to transition. But the wins are coming as well for them. So Craig Berube fired after 13-4-1 start. There was all sorts of rumors about Berube not getting along with guys like Jordan Kyrou and all. They're still, again, trying to. They got a whole bunch of draft assets. I mean, two of them in the Tarasenko. Excuse me, not Tarasenko. The Ryan. Oh, yes, Tarasenko and the Ryan O'Reilly trade. They got 2 late firsts as well. And I was surprised that they didn't. And with 3 first-round picks, their own, and those 2, surprised they didn't trade up as far as trying to get trying to get another player with the assets that they had available. But there was not a lot of activity as far as movement in the first round as well, and still trying to develop guys like a Jake Neighbors, one that they drafted, homegrown player. But you're also relying on guys who are on the older side as well. Stanley Cup champion and Brandon Saad as well. So once again, retooling year for the St. Louis Blues. But you hear one thing from Doug Armstrong expecting to be competitive, but then you see roster moves that say otherwise. So are they trying to win? Are they not? So it's a big question mark there. So as far as the guys leading the St. Louis Blues, as far as scoring, Robert Thomas with 32. But the next one is Pavel Buchnevich with 23 points, 10 goals and 13 assists. Thomas has 12 goals and 20. And then Jordan Kyrou. This is a big conversation point for Jordan Kyrou because he's been all over the media over the last week since Craig Berube got fired. Matthew Tkachuk is not the only one struggling with scoring. Jordan Kyrou as well, but his shooting percentage is just a slight bit higher than Matthew Tkachuk. Jordan Kyrou, 5 goals and 15 assists, 5.7% shooting. Kevin Hayes, 31 years old, just below him. You're trying to rely on a lot of older guys as far as trying to get some wins. 17 points, 9 goals, 8 assists. Braden Shen, a plus minus of 13 as well. So they're not getting it on the defensive end either, on either side of the ice. Their power play is 31st in the league. Their goals against are towards the bottom. Goals for as well. But one encouraging thing about the St. Louis Blues is not necessarily their ability to kill penalties, but getting out on the rush shorthanded, which they can score. They have almost as many shorthanded goals than they do power play goals. They have 8 shorthanded goals and 9 power play goals. So if you have almost as many, then there's a problem when you eventually do go on the man advantage. But Jordan Binnington, despite the troubles with the franchise on and off the ice, he's actually having a really good season. Even though it says 3.20 GAA, his save percentage is at a 904, which when you think about what the GAA is compared to that save percentage, what's saying is a lot of shots are coming his way, possibly a lot of high danger as well. And hopefully, and the St. Louis Blues are hoping that with Drew Bannister now in, which Doug Armstrong was very adamant on saying that he is the interim head coach coming from their affiliate in Springfield, which former Panthers affiliate, by the way, as well. So and Drew Bannister played 164 NHL games, was a gold medalist in the World Juniors for Team Canada as well, and also there's some NHL experience there as far and coaching experience as well within the organization. But Jordan Kyrou, the biggest story here, where he was asked about what do you think about Craig Berube on him being let go, and he says he's not my coach anymore. And I didn't really see the audio until later, but I did read it over X. And I didn't want to prejudge before hearing the audio for it because it could be taken out of context. And I do believe it was kind of taken out of context as far as that. And it was basically another way of saying no comment as far as that, because you're trying to move on from the situation as well. But that doesn't mean that there was a good relationship between him and Craig Berube as well. So, and that's something that they'll probably never say publicly, and they don't owe us that neither. Let's also not forget that. So, and then goes out the very next game, gets booed by his own fans, and which if you buy a ticket, you have the right to cheer, boo, as long as you're not saying anything bad or derogatory about them or their families and all. So cheer, boo, do whatever as far as that. And then asking him about what do you think about being booed in front of his own fans, and tearing up and saying that he really does in fact like playing here. And the very next game, home game on Saturday against the Dallas Stars, gets 3 points and including the game-winning assist to Colton Parayko, and then the crowd cheering and the post-game interviews, and then him being asked, what do you think of these fans and saying, I love these fans and all, and they're cheering him back. So, and the fact that he made it up with a good performance, that gives you a good sense of, at least if you're a St. Louis fan, hoping for things to get better after this, because even though they haven't gotten that new coach bump as far as play and bringing in some wins, I mean, they're right at 500 right now, and all. You're hoping that you can at least make something out of this season, and I guess, even though there's still a little confusion of what the plan is, it definitely does not look like the plan is to fully tank and mail it in, as they're 3 points behind in for the final wild card spot, 3 points behind the Arizona Coyotes. So they, as they are continuing to be back in the playoffs for after missing for the first time in quite a few years. But in segment number 3, we are going to talk about tonight's matchup between the Florida Panthers and the St. Louis Blues, as both of them will take the ice tonight from Amerant Bank Arena. We're going to discuss that more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. The NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities, whether Sam Reinhart, there's a possibility that he could score 50 goals. The Florida Panthers, they definitely do have a chance to hoist the Stanley Cup. You can win big by playing Daily Fantasy on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Sam Reinhart, Alexander Barkov, Sidney Crosby, or Nathan McKinnon, if they will record more or less their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8-player stats. You heard me, Cats fans. You win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. Use code LOCKEDONHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for detail and locational availability. Third and final segment here on this Thursday, December 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Thursday, as the Florida Panthers are looking to bring home to get back to their winning ways. And as I say that, checking X, and Anton Lundell and Yona Gadjevich are both on the ice. And Sergei Bobrovsky looks to be in the starters net for the Florida Panthers as morning skate is getting underway from Amerant Bank Arena. So I was thinking, even before the Florida Panthers were taking the ice, I was thinking, okay, the roster freeze is currently going on. Paul Maurice spoke yesterday about Yona Gadjevich remains out. But remember, let's remind ourselves, Paul Maurice will not have someone play until they get at least a skate in. Yesterday, Anton Lundell skated for 35 minutes before practice, skating again this morning. Signs are looking pretty good for Anton Lundell to be back in the lineup and back on that third line for the Panthers. Either that or the Panthers will go 11F, 7D on the night, one of those two. So, Florida Panthers, St. Louis Blues. All-time series is 13, 26, and 3 in favor of the St. Louis Blues. 6, 12, and 2 at home against St. Louis. Swept last year, unfortunately, to St. Louis. First game was on November 26th, a 5-4 overtime loss in South Florida. The Panthers were getting off to a really great start. Thomas Greiss versus Spencer Knight. And yeah, Thomas Greiss is a name that triggers a lot of people in this fan base and all, and during his time with the Islanders. And the Panthers, they were getting in front, closing gaps early, especially going on breakaways as well, and even got a shorthanded goal to make it 4-1. cool. They were outshot them 33-16, but then 19-4 in the final period as the Panthers let Jordan Kyrou loose multiple times. One of them to bring the game within one, and then on the game-winning goal as well. The second one on February 14th, the second night of a back-to-back, it was Spencer Knight versus Jordan Binnington, and this was right before Spencer Knight went to the Players Assistance Program, and I believe it was February 20th exactly when Spencer Knight went to the Players Assistance Program, and this game was on February 14th, so less than a week before as well. So yeah, with that, it was horrible from the start as the St. Louis Blues got a goal that bounced off the end boards and then right off Spencer Knight as he was just outside his crease, off his skate and into the net, and then the St. Louis Blues were just faster at scoring on a 2-on-1, quicker to pucks, and another rush that led to it on pinches, turnovers in their own zone, and then going the other way. And it's funny because it could have been even worse, where a goal was called back due to a high stick, the, where Justin Falk looked to have scored, but Robert Thomas was called for a high stick. But Jordan Kyrou once again scored on a give and go opportunity. So Jordan Kyrou loves playing the Florida Panthers, and I know he's struggling this season, but that's a guy to watch for as well. And also, that was also a broadcast that I was not really a fan of. It was an ESPN Plus broadcast, which two of the 5 goals that St. Louis scored, the camera was not even pointing to the play. So a lot of us were throwing our hands up, thinking, how did that go in? How did that develop? And we didn't know until we saw a replay. It's on record, by the way, on an old episode that I did. I think it was February 15th. That episode, if you guys want to go back and listen to it. But I did go on an epic rant about the ESPN Plus broadcast as well. So we spoke about the St. Louis Blues. Power play is one of the worst in the league at 10%, but also this is a team that they don't go to the box a lot. They are the third least penalized team in the NHL, but also their opponent, they don't draw a lot of penalties to their opponents neither. They draw the sixth least amount of penalties. So a lot of their games are played at 5-on-5. However, they don't possess the puck a lot, as Corsi 4 percentage at 5-on-5 is 46%, minus 14 goal differential. We did mention the shorthanded goals to the power play goals, so you definitely don't want to turn the puck over while you're on the power play, and that's going to be the big matchup for me to watch as well. Don't turn the puck over while you're on the man advantage, because they could definitely make you pay. And unfortunately, for the Blues, they did lose pretty badly the other night against the Tampa Bay Lightning, where the Lightning were getting pucks in deep, protected the neutral zone, crashed the net, took Jordan Binnington's eyes away. There was one goal that Nikita Kucherov scored as he was the forward back, and Perbix was getting it back to the top of the circle, and then no screen, and then gets through Jordan Binnington 5-hole there as well. And not only, like I said, multiple screens in front of Jordan Binnington, one on a double screen as well. So that is what you're going to have to do to the St. Louis Blues. Make them turn the puck over, make them second guess their first pass out as they try to break it out of the zone, and hope. And for the Panthers, they've been successful at home outside of 1 3-game losing streak at home, which thankfully with that 3-game losing streak, in the middle of that was a Eastern Canadian road trip where they got some wins there. So so for the Panthers, for the most part, home has been a very comfortable place for the Panthers, and a great opportunity for the Cats to just get back to their winning ways. And they got a little bit of help on the other night, where the New York Rangers went into Toronto and won by a final score of 5-2 on Tuesday. So they got a little bit of help. There's still some work to do if you want to get up into the division standings and all. And for the Panthers, just win. Just protect that neutral zone and get in front of the net, because as we saw in Calgary, it was really tough for them to get their cross ice passes for second chance opportunities. So this is a big one for just the Panthers' confidence as far as that, because when you think of it, three of your losses, uh, at least the most recent ones, one goal in those three, and I'm sure they are fired up, and South Florida is going to be fired up to have this team back. And not only, we don't want to look too far ahead, but there is a Stanley Cup final rematch coming this Saturday against the Vegas Golden Knights. So definitely a very exciting one, uh, a very exciting 3 days. Um, for the Florida Panthers right before the holiday break. On tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, it is going to be a Fairbanks Friday edition of the show where Nick Fairbanks will be back, and we will be breaking down this game between the Florida Panthers and the St. Louis Blues. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.